Always. No? It's 5:03 or 5:04, so I have a motion to open up the meeting.
I'll make it.
Paul makes the motion.
Second.
Roger seconds, all in favor. Since New York State legalized cannabis in March of this year, the town board has the duty, the responsibility, and the authority to act on whether cannabis dispensaries and consumption rooms are allowed in the town of Wawarsing outside the boundaries of the village of Ellenville. Okay. At that point, we'll open up the floor to, what do you got?
So I'll move to open the public hearing for, is this
We have
dispensaries?
3 minutes before we can go public.
Well, no,
No.
Three
I'm saying a time frame.
of 3.
Okay.
Okay.
You
All right.
have to,
So,
Okay.
because we've
So
got-
we're talking about the dispensaries first. That's the first
I
public hearing?
believe the first law was the
Consumption?
consumption rooms.
Consumption.
Yeah,
All
that's
right, so the
the first.
first,
I won't open anything yet.
excuse me?
I won't open any meeting yet.
Because we gotta wait till
Not
5:05.
5:05.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's,
Yeah, but
the rules.
the first one.
First one's at 5 o'clock.
I think it was
No,
five-
it's 5 o'clock.
and then
First was first one, okay.
all right, I misunderstood.
First, just,
We'll get it
Public
together.
hearing,
It's our first meeting, you
you
know?
can talk to the same.
It just didn't in one shot.
Yeah, I know.
Open the public hearing for dispensaries.
Consumption.
consumption rooms.
So, again, the public hearing, we're gonna have 2 public hearings because we separated the public hearings into consumption rooms first, dispensaries second. So anybody that wants to make a comment, come up, tell us your name and your comments, and we can actually set a time frame of about 3 minutes apiece.
Good evening, my name is Mary Shealy,
All right?
and I would just like to really commend the 5 of you for having the courage to bring this forward, to make your stand, whichever way it goes, although you all know how I'm hoping, but whichever way it goes, at least you're letting the people who elected you know your position on an issue that is so important to them, so crucial to them, and I just give you so much credit for making it public, putting the law out there, and taking a public stand on it instead of sitting back and just letting it do its own thing by the board doing nothing. So you're to be commended, and I thank the 5 of you very much.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Cindy Weiner, I believe, had her hand up before.
I did. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
First off, I have a letter that my neighbor sent me that he would like me to read it because of COVID, he can't come. And he give me an email for it, all right? Can you hear me this?
Go ahead.
Don't opt out. Most of the problems associated with prohibitions have to do with legal acquisition channels and clandestine consumption arrangements. Controlling these 2 components provides safety for those who are indulging and decency for the community. A civil society, ours without endorsing harmful behaviors, allows and to varying degrees regulates them. Alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, and gambling are all addictive and in some measure harmful to the individuals who partake. Cannabis consumption does not harm the user. What's more, the legal user is typically calm, introspective, peaceful, and whether a moderate or heavy client does not impose a burden on the general public. Marijuana is not addictive and has no dependency, no withdrawal effects, no need for increasing the dosage, rather than the contrary is true, and is used in self-limiting moderation. Even the so-called pothead would never spend his last dollar on weed and would, as an alcoholic or nicotine habit too. And he would certainly never go into debt or spend money needed for the basics of living, as do some lottery and instant win ticket junkies. The gateway argument has been thoroughly debunked. For details, reread Lisa Ryder's and my comments to the Schwannbach Journal's article, Will Ellenville Be Western Ulster's Weed Mecca? The town can best serve its citizenry by managing the steering of the cannabis in various delivery modes. It makes little sense for the edible consumer to buy the product elsewhere, ingest it outside the restaurant door, and then become a patron. Bring your own is less fun and diverts the tax revenue to other jurisdictions. Make no mistake, many local passing tourists and out-of-town weekenders are going to be partaking. It makes no sense whatsoever to eschew the revenue component of the recent, I can't read this thing now, and reshape of our lifestyle. But rest assured that I am not advocating for revenue at the expense of the community as to with lotto tickets. Marijuana is not a drug. The positive health benefits and mode of social interaction will have no downside. Bob Prenner.
Could you give a copy of that?
Thank you.
And for myself, with this, at this time, I'm not in favor of the lounges. Buy it, go home, use it, be responsible adults, and do not drive under the influence.
Thank you, Cindy. Mike?
Anyone else?
I recognize Mike Durso.
My name is Mike Dorso, and I want several things I'd like the board to consider tonight. There are definitely health issues with marijuana use. I urge everyone to check out the CDC site on marijuana. That's the Center for Disease Control. Now, whether you're pro marijuana or you're against marijuana, there are definite health issues here that have to be considered. The State Office of Cannabis Medicalization is in the process of making the rules and regulations on marijuana. The town is being told to make a decision by December 31st. And yet the town does not know the rules and regulations because the commission has not formulated it yet. You're being asked to vote on something that you have basically no knowledge on. No definite regulations or rules. What will the strength, the THC, which is the strength of marijuana, what is the level going to be? High levels will increase the risk of someone developing marijuana disorder. Will the state provide the resources for treatment for these people? We don't have the answers. How can the state demand that you vote on something by December 31st when you don't have all the information needing to make an intelligent decision? Now, I'm telling you this whether you're pro or against marijuana. You just don't have the facts. It looks like there's going to be a local excise tax. There's some numbers thrown around on income. So we really don't know what the income could be for the town if you make it legal. And it's going to cover the cost that's going to cost the town. Number one, what's going to happen with your first aid squad? Are you going to have to hire extra personnel? Are you going to need more funding from the town? You don't know. There's so many questions you don't have answers to. Also, with the town provides health insurance to its employees. Are your rates going to go up because you have marijuana in town? Is your liability insurance going to go up? You don't know. These trouble with the state is they're forcing you to make a decision without having the facts. I would like to thank the town board for their time on this. Being a former town board member, I know how hard some of these decisions are to make. But once again, I would impress upon the board that right now, you don't have the facts on this issue. So I'm urging the board to opt out. Thank you.
One in the back, one on the side.
Step up and state your name.
Thank you. I'm Deacon Jack Carr. I'm the deacon at St. Mary's in Kingston. My wife and I have lived in Ellenville for 15 years, and I just wanted to point something out, and that is currently in the state of New York, it's legal to consume marijuana in your residence, right? A certain amount. So the question in my mind is, why are we opening specific specialty sites to consume marijuana if you can do it in your home? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, right? Second, there's always going to be a trickle-down effect with this type of thing. If you're going to open up places that you can get marijuana and you can consume marijuana, ultimately the adults that want to do that, some of that product is going to trickle down to youth. It's inevitable. And some people here who are pro-marijuana might say, well, I would never do that. And that's fine, but there are people who will, right? We're broken. Human beings are broken. So I think we should take that into account as well. And last, I think just from the perspective of what it's going to do for the town of Wawarsing, I just think it's going to muddy the town's image. I really do. And ultimately, as somebody who lives in Ellenville, I think it's going to drive down property values. I really do. I mean, what are these consumption sites going to look like? Are they going to be storefronts? Are you going to have one next to the library? I mean, it's absurd. To me, in my mind, it's absurd. But anyway, that's me. So, thank you. And once again, I'll keep doing prayer.
Thank you.
Woman on the right.
Ma'am?
My name is Rita Valacour and I live in Mackinac. And all of these arguments that you're listening to, they all have validation one way or the other. Unfortunately, we have alcohol and cigarettes that are legal and killers, and we all know that. And we all know the effects that alcohol has on our community. But I think the bottom line is we're arguing about something that really is second to what we should be thinking about. And as a business point of view, we should be thinking about two things. Do we opt in or do we opt out? If we opt in, we have the option. That doesn't mean we have to do anything about it, but we can be there so that we can find out the rules, the regulations, the effects, the regulatory things that would be marijuana based. If we opt out, they tell us that we have the options to then opt in. But you know government, you are government, I know government. Once this starts moving in this state, and it will because it's productive in so many states, this is going to be something that the government's going to look at as opt in at what price? Who gets a license? Do you have to buy it? Does the county have to pay for it? And then what are your restrictions? Because when people start opting in, which they will after they opted out, and they're watching their other townships make mega bucks off the taxes, then you're going to be in line for waiting until your town can opt in. When could that be? It could be a year, it could be 5 years, who knows? We know what happens with liquor licenses. It takes a long time. But once you're in, then you have the opportunity to sit back and see what the state's decisions are, what the legalities are, what the regulations on marijuana is. Do you want to lounge or don't you want to lounge? Do you want to store? Do you want both? You have all those options, and you don't have to do anything right now except make a decision to say, we're open, tell us what's going to happen next. So I vote for opting in on all the business aspects rather than worrying about whether marijuana is going to kill you, because we all know alcohol and cigarettes kill you anyway, and they're all legal.
Step up and tell us your name. Father Ken.
My name is Father Ken Rio, pastor at St. Mary's St. Andrews, Illinois. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to discuss this. I echo Mary Shelley's kind words. I urge and pray, God, that the town of Wawarsing would opt out, and there are various reasons. This is not, I don't think we have the time or the place to discuss the negative effects of marijuana, but suffice to say that just because one says it's not the gateway drug, the fact of the matter is it is a gateway drug. talked to a priest, and I'm sure Deacon Clark can back me up on this one. I know he can back me up on this one. The effects that the whole drug culture, of which marijuana is very much a part. It's interesting that many states and localities that have these sort of things will always set aside a certain sum of money for drug rehab. Why? Because it leads to more drugs. That's the bottom and simple answer to it. And alcohol, cigarettes, abusing them is bad. But the drug culture is very dangerous. And Grupo Unidad, if anyone is familiar, having come to our parish church, they are not officially part of the Catholic Church, but they have the support of His Eminence Cardinal Dolan, and they rely 100% on donations for their existence. They're a home for men struggling with drug addiction, and they have a very high success rate in helping men come off drugs. And they're in Jeffersonville, Sullivan County. Talk to these young men, and you'll find out about the negatives of marijuana. You could also talk to my two nephews, Anthony and Andrew. It does lead, for a certain number of young people, it will lead to worse drugs. And unless you're really totally blind and don't want to see it, how many young people have succumbed to drugs in our country? What's the number? Do anyone here know? I think it's about 30,000 a year. Overdoses. Anecdotal, I believe her. She's a very good person. This person works in Liberty at the post office in Sullivan County. In the last month, at least one person has died of drug overdoses across the street from the post office. Since my arrival here in Ellenville, 15 young people that I know of, either personally knew or they were related as friend or family member to our parishioners, 15 since my arrival here 4.5 years ago. That does not include the number of others who I didn't know, just read about in the newspaper or heard, through the grapevine about a young person, usually a young person, and more often than not, a male, for whatever reason. There's a better way. There's a better way. Just because New York State, many other states now are going this way, legalizing it, doesn't make it right. We can do better for our young people, for a better hope and a better future. Morally and socially, we're falling apart as a nation. So many young people wondering, and statistically, how many of our young people, it's an all-time high, are on anxiety drugs. We have to give them real hope. And this is not the answer. It's copping out. All for a buck? We don't need that money. Let Wawarsing, no matter what other townships do, be an example of what is good for our young people. And to point out to them that this is not a good thing. There's a better way. And admittedly, my appeal is more from the heart. I have all kinds of facts and figures in my room, but I didn't think this would be the place for it, except to say what I know what is true about it. It is a gateway drug, no matter what one may think or say about it. Talk to drug addicts.
Anyone in the room wants to speak out, step up and come on up and state your name and state your comments.
My name is Kathleen Smith. I've lived in the area for 48 years. When I first moved to this area, my husband and I, my brother, who was deep into marijuana and then eventually into other things, him and his friends in New York City said, get off a bus in Ellenville and you can get anything you want. Okay? Now, over the years, when we first moved here, how many bars did we have in Ellenville? We had lots of bars. And how much taxpayers' money and everything else was spent to make Ellenville a better community with not so many bars? Is there any bar in Ellenville right now? Why do we have to have smoking lounges, okay? It's been said, it's legal to smoke at home. Why do we have to smoke other places? Have a party in your house and invite all your guests, all right? Alcohol, as one person said, doesn't cause deaths. How many people have you known that have been fatally injured in a car accident because somebody was drunk? How many people do you know? How many young people have you seen that can hardly walk because they're high on marijuana and get in a car? How many people who are now selling and giving to our high school students? I personally know of a family that's happening, that now the person can go and get as much as they want, wherever they want, and then how many more young people are they going to start to infect? It's a slippery slope. In 1973, nobody ever thought, when Roe versus Wade was passed, nobody ever thought we would now be allowing a baby to be born and die on the table comfortably. It's a slippery slope. And it starts with this. I'm for opting out. Opting in, saying yes.
She meant opting out.
I think you meant,
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, the vote is.
Yes is to opt out.
I'm Manuela Michailescu. I'll give you this. Okay, thank you. Former town board member in Rochester, and I just want to tell you that I'm ashamed to be from Rochester, a place where they didn't even discuss for a minute or a second. So I want to congratulate you for being serious, showing responsibility, organizing these public hearings. And hopefully you'll make the right decision. I would be for opting out, but anyway, congratulations to all town board members for willing to discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, they're
I know, but then you have to open the next one. Well, I think this is for.
She just made it.
Anyone else like to make any comments? Want to come up to the table and state your name, please?
Alan Coombe. Been a lot of arguments made for opting out, and I think that first and foremost is your decision here is deciding whether you're going to be restricting people or disallowing their opportunities to participate in an industry that is now apparently open for people to participate in. And considering figures would be a big help in being able to determine those things, now would be the time and place for those figures and data to be presented. I really don't see many substantial arguments for opting out, except for a bunch of selfish bias and personal experiences that people have had with people that they know who have participated or otherwise been exposed to marijuana. There's been a lot of people who haven't been exposed to it and they have their own personal opinions on it, and mine are positive. I have plenty of friends and people that I've known and come to know across my life that have participated and partook in marijuana. And I do not see any reason why we would choose to opt out of participating in this industry. And I just want to be the dissenting voice, apparently, to let you know that that's what you'd be doing, is restricting people's opportunities to take place in an industry that is now available. So, thank you.
All right, thanks, Andy.
Anyone else?
I'll move to close the public hearing. That was dispensaries?
no, that was,
Okay, then the lounges?
That was consumption sites.
Okay, then, and I'll move to open the hearing on dispensaries.
Yeah, you got the one for me.
Yeah.
But I think anyone who spoke doesn't have to speak again.
Unless you've
changing your
got
subject.
something
I'll
to
second
add.
that, TJ.
Okay. Yeah.
I think everyone
Because
has,
there's two public hearings, so
Right.
we have to open up both.
but I think everybody, pretty much everyone who spoke on both.
Okay.
Just, Cindy, you have something to say on the
I
next
have
law?
I have a lot to say. We got time?
Yes, come on up, you got time.
And I'm taking my mask off because I cannot breathe with this thing on and talk at the same time. I'm Cindy Wagner, and I live in the town of Wawarsing. I could start out by saying, in a perfect world, but it is not, and we are not. Cannabis is legal in New York State. Back in August, the red carpet was rolled out for Cresco Labs right here in front of the Hunts Memorial Building. 300 so good-paying jobs for our community, which we desperately need. Now that Cresco has been welcomed into our community, we need to figure out how best to deal with it. I acknowledge our town has not been spared from drug usage and all the problems that come with it. Cannabis is probably the least of our problems. There have been some reports in different states, including New York, about street cannabis being laced with fentanyl. Maybe dispensaries would have saved a few lives. Addiction is a huge problem. When listening or reading news reports, you hear much more about it with drugs like cocaine, opioids, OxyContin, which is prescribed way too much for way too long, heroin, and others. New York State had a problem with synthetic marijuana back in 2016, which caused many to be hospitalized. Most people that use pot use it to chill or to reduce sickness in regards to chemo treatments or pain management. They smoke it, eat it, rub it on as in CBD oils. A growing number of senior citizens use cannabis in one form or another, as reported in an AARP article on September 19th, for a wide range of issues. People are also using some forms of marijuana to treat their pets. From the Health New York Governor website, you may be eligible for medical marijuana if you've been diagnosed with cancer, ALS, Parkinson's disease, and many others. The village appears to be all in with dispensaries and lounges. Although I am not sure the profits will be what they hope for, it makes no sense to roll out the red carpet and then say, you can make it here, but you can't sell it here. As in knives from Charade, antennas from Channel Master, or you can brew beer here, but you can't sell it here. Sounds a bit biased and unfair for something that is legal. These places need to be away from the schools and places of worship, which I believe falls in line with the liquor stores and bars. You have to be over 21 to purchase it. Heavily fine those that sell to underage individuals. I am in favor of the dispensaries. I feel that there are probably many more people in our community that use medical or recreational marijuana that wouldn't admit it because of the stigma associated with it. Denying adults local access to medical marijuana is wrong. If they need to travel to Kingston or Middletown to purchase it, why not stop and shop at a wide range of stores available in those areas? Why not go out and have a meal at a restaurant while there? This could hurt our local businesses. Our town is at a growing stage, rebirth, so to speak, after a long, sad spell of job losses and businesses coming and going. We have new people moving in. Our town is changing, like it or not. We see all these signs that say buy local. Well, you won't get more local than this. In regards to tax dollars, I suspect Cresco Labs will not be paying full taxes for many years. Why would we give up tax dollars by not allowing dispensaries? People, probably the people that purchased street weed, will continue to do so as it is cheaper. There is no way to know how any of this is going to work in advance. There are no promises for tomorrow. The simple fact is cannabis is legal. I find it distressing in a way that we are dealing with this at the 11th hour to opt in or out. This is a big deal and a learning process. There has been little information about Cresco Labs or the local laws for people to have easy access to. I have spent endless hours reading as much as my brain can process and more to understand as much as possible about marijuana. Not something that was on my to-do list at this time of the year. All decisions should be not political. They should be not even personal. They should be made on information. I did take notice that there were 2 letters posted on the town's website, and both are opt-out letters. Where's the opt-in letter? In closing, I want to congratulate Terry, Mike Machetta, Bill Brown for winning their elections, and thank Roger Buckwalter and TJ for your service to the town. Best of luck to Roger and whatever your next adventure may be, and TJ with your new position as trustee in Ellenville. And I end with this. COVID sucks. Oh, yes, and underneath here, these are all the things that I read that I, used for my handwriting sucks.
I'll move to close the second public hearing.
Seeing no one,
I just
Wait,
I
we
just
got
want
one.
to second Cindy's sentiments.
come up and state your name.
My name is Tommy Merling, and I'd like to second Cindy's sentiments.
Okay.
I'll move to close the second public hearing.
I'll second.
The public hearing on consumption sites, which is what we've just done. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
Okay.
There's TJ and Roger?
Roger.
Okay. The second local law for opting out is the retail dispensaries. If you want to say something specific?
We did them both.
We did it.
The first half was the half.
We
Oh,
had all
yes, you're right, I was up and down
Yeah.
twice.
I wasn't paying attention.
All right, so both of them are closed out. And at this point, we are going to discuss the first one that we had, which was the consumption sites. Discuss to the point of local law number 3, 2021 of the Town of Wawarsing Town Board to add a new chapter to the Town Code of the Town of Wawarsing to be identified as 41A, titled Cannabis Regulation, Consumption Sites, which hereby adopts to, it's an opting out law. It's required for the board to express their opinions and vote.
Okay, so the first in line.
So,
We're gonna
Mr.
start,
Briggs would be
we're
first.
start over here.
Well, I would suggest we get a motion and a second and a discussion.
Right. I have a motion to discuss the consumption sites.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, so Paul makes the motion, TJ seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion's carried. Therefore, at this particular time, we'll go from Mr. Briggs to me. Just you can vote or make your discussion and vote.
So we're making, so you're making a motion to vote on local law number 1 then?
That's
Local law number
You said
3.
Discussion.
Local law number
Number
3. This is for consumption sites.
Right. To opt out on consumption
I'm
sites.
voting yes to opt out of that.
Mr. Cozzolino.
And I will be also voting yes on that law.
Which is opt out. Yes.
Correct.
And as far as consumption, I also vote to opt out on consumption lounges.
I'll be voting to opt out of consumption rooms.
I vote to opt out of consumption. Okay. Therefore, it's 5-0
Correct.
against opting in, or actually the law
In
is.
favor of opting out.
Yes, in favor of
Opting out of
and
consumption.
creating the chapter 41A, which is the opt-out law. That only, it's 5-0.
Yep.
The next one that we're going to vote on is local law number 4, to add a chapter to the town code of the town of Wawarsing to be identified as chapter 41A, entitled Cannabis Regulation, Retail Dispensaries. So, again, we start with Mr. Briggs.
Need a
Want to
motion?
make the motion?
Motion.
That's the second time I've done that. So, who makes the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Cassie makes the motion.
I'll second for discussion.
TJ makes the second for discussion.
I'm in no.
Okay.
I think, and with some explanation, I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table there, and it's not just about money. I also believe that dispensary with Crespo being there, and I believe Crespo will probably seek to open a dispensary with proper zoning. We put a lot of time and effort. In fact, we just did it this evening, interviewing people for our planning board. I think with proper zoning and planning, it gives a positive to the community. Obviously, I don't think there's a person on this board that wants anything on Canal or Center Street. And that, I think, zoning for the town would be somewhere in the 209 corridor. Also, as a reminder that, folks that want to do, we go back to the, when everybody was in favor of the casino. I didn't really hear a single person complain about the casino, and yet gambling is probably one of the biggest addictions there is, because we all thought it'd be do great things. So I think proper placement of dispensary and research that I've done with these dispensaries, I've heard people equate it, Marty Rapkin, to like an Apple store. I've heard people say, it's like going into a bank, and it costs the person that's going to apply for that license roughly $250,000 to get that license. So there's going to be no nonsense. So I think we're leaving a lot on the table by if the town board should choose to opt out. I think we're leaving a lot on the table, and I think we could use it for the benefit, not only the money, but the placement thereof and so on, and the message we send to Crespo if we do it properly. And that's why I'm a no on opting out.
Paul Tozolino.
Okay. Well, first of all, we're really not here to debate the legality of this issue, or not even here to really be discussing medicinal use of marijuana. These two laws that we're voting on tonight have to do with recreational use and recreational dispensaries. They have nothing to do with the availability of medicinal marijuana. I've gotten a lot of inputs from residents and business owners, both pro and con, on this issue, and I really appreciate the fact that business owners, residents, as they've seen me around town, they've called me, they've texted me, they've given me information, both pro and con, on this issue for the past couple of weeks in particular. The decision that we're making here right now it's a very difficult decision for me. I think it would be irresponsible, as some of the folks in the audience had said, if we had just kind of let the clock run out and kind of kick the can down the road and just let this happen. And that would have given you, the residents, no opportunity at all to really have a decision on this. There were some comments made before about the CDC and, what's fact, what's not fact. I guess one of the takeaways that I have picked up on, and people will dispute things, people say follow the science on things, but basically the information that I've been able to glean on this is that 3 out of every 10 users have what's called marijuana disorder or cannabis use disorder. And I guess in my mind that comes down to compulsive use or dependence or addiction or whatever you may want to call it. The pros that I hear about on this are also about tax dollars. Almost everyone who's told me that they were pro on it basically talked about tax dollars. I don't think that there's necessarily the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow on this thing. And if you want to do some research, the state of California is got a big problem right now. In the state of California, marijuana has been legal. It's been highly regulated, highly taxed. And so what's happening now? The dispensaries and the manufacturers are going to the state of California, and they're basically telling the government that we need to unregulate this. We need to bring the prices down because we can't compete against the black market. So, everybody says that there's money, that there's taxes. Maybe there are, but, it doesn't seem to be working everywhere. There were some comments that were made about the two laws and, whether we're opting in, opting out. There's some comments that have been made about the fact that, we basically, if this board doesn't make a decision between now and the 31st of December, which is what we're doing today, and I appreciate the fact that residents have made comments that, this is, as I said, this is not an easy decision to be making here. But if we don't make a decision, we don't allow the residents to have any recourse on this in the future. If we make a decision and the residents disagree with us, there is legal recourse. So I think, as fellow board members and the comments that were made here in the public tonight, I think we are doing the right thing in bringing it forward to the public to have these two laws on the books potentially, and then let the public decide. It also gives us an opportunity to opt in basically any time we choose to, as long as we choose to. So we could just change our mind in January. We could change our mind in February, March, etc. This whole process is a little bit of the cart before the horse. The control board and the boards that have been meeting from a New York State standpoint haven't even had their first meeting until October 5th of this year, which leaves it very difficult for us as local lawmakers to make decisions on things. By voting and approving these two laws, what we've done is we've given all of us the opportunity to find out what's real and what's not real on this, versus having a situation where if we kick the can down the road and just let it happen, we then have no choice. Once you opt in, you are in. There's no choice in the matter on that. So as a result of that, and after a lot of deliberation and a lot of listening, I vote to vote yes on the second law so that we have the opportunity to make informed decisions as we move forward. Thank you.
Roger.
Okay, well, again, thank you everyone for coming. I wish we see people like this attendance at all our meetings, but it takes something very radical to bring people out, but that's okay. I want to start by saying, first of all, shame on the state of New York. They did to us the same thing they did when they passed the bail reform law. They didn't think things out. And they didn't think things out with this law. But they passed the law, and that's the law we've got. One of the reasons I voted to opt out of the consumption was because if you're driving, if you've been drinking and get pulled over by a police officer and he smells alcohol, you can be checked, you can be tested, but not with marijuana. So it seems like the laws are a lot more lax with marijuana. That's why I voted to opt out on the consumption laws. As far as the distribution is, well, you know what? The law is the law, and it's here. Drugs have been in Ellenville forever. We didn't just start having a drug problem 10 or 15 years ago. 50 years ago, Ellenville, I think, was the heroin capital of Ulster County. So drugs are not new to Ellenville. I don't buy so much into that it's a gateway drug. I know a lot of people in our younger days who smoked who are now teachers, are lawyers, are politicians. You know, they smoke not to escape reality. We're going to smoke, we're going to turn on some good music, we're going to eat a lot of Oreo cookies and milk, and that'll be it. Tomorrow we go on with our day. It's here now. I think people can be responsible. They're going to go out. You can get it on the street. It's here now. So yes, there is an argument. It will be safer because you know where you're getting. These dispensaries are going to be licensed and permitted for exceptionally large amounts of money. So everyone's just going to go in there and just open up a store. You're not going to see stores everywhere you go. I think the responsible people will still be responsible. Will it be abuse? Sure, there will be. There's abuse to alcohol. There's abuse to a lot of things, and we have to deal with that. I don't agree with the tax dollars being the first step in the argument. Yes, there probably will be tax dollars, but that should not be the only reason. And I don't like when people say that's the reason, get the tax money. It's a part of the reason, but it's not the only reason. But the reason is it's here now, it's on the streets, it's available. Let's make it legal. Let's make it able for people who are responsible to get a product that we know is safe, to take it home, to use it responsibly. I would ask that our other two members also vote to not opt out on the dispensary law because, again, opting out is not going to keep us from having it. It's here, and it's here to stay. So I will not be voting to opt out on the dispensaries.
Thank you, Roger. Cassie?
My goodness. It is really good to see all of you in the audience today and the people on Facebook Live that are listening. I've done a lot of research on this. I've listened to people of faith. I've listened to doctors. I've listened to my teenager. I've listened to my 25-year-old. And I was really torn about what I was going to do tonight. But there are three things that bothered me the most. One is I never like New York State to hold a gun to my head. And when they tell me if my municipality opts in, we can never opt out, that's a bridge too far. That's government overreach, and they shouldn't be able to mess with our home rule on any circumstances. My second thought was, in 1983, we put their education into our schools. We have spent millions and millions of dollars teaching our children that drugs are bad. This is an intoxicating herb, and we can't keep alcohol out of our schools, even though it's strictly regulated. How are we going to keep the gummies and the brownies out of the school? And which of our fine people in the school are going to be able to tell you that the gummy is a marijuana gummy or a jujube gummy, or whether it's a Little Debbie's cupcake or a marijuana cupcake? This is a problem, and New York State, once again, has put the cart before the horse and not thought this through. Our kids, our youth are at risk, and I will not put my name on something that puts our youth at risk. Now, I'm all about saving you guys some money and getting us some extra tax dollars when it makes sense. I've been in high-level conversations with the marijuana hydroponic plant people that are coming in, and they are in many places that have not got consumption rooms or dispensaries. They still show up, they still put their plant in, and we still get their tax dollars. And they still put in the 300 jobs where they grow. One of the places you can research if you want to know about Crespo is there in Warwick. Warwick does not have retail dispensaries and does not have consumption rooms. So that is it's a red herring. There may be something that tanks that deal, but it isn't going to be this vote. We need to think long and hard about the reputation that we want the town of Wawarsing to put forth. I've only been in this town 18 years, but when I came here, all I heard was, there's drugs on the street, there's crimes on the street, don't let your kids walk to school, always drive your kids here, always do that. Well, we're finally getting our reputation back. Do we really want to be do we really need this weed, this intoxicating herb, to be on our flag, so to speak? I don't think we do. We have so much natural beauty. We have trails. We have amazing Shadowland performances. We have restaurants. We have all these possibilities are just right out there in the future. And I don't think tainting us with marijuana is a good way to go. So on that note, for the time being, I will be voting in favor of this law. If New York State comes forward and can show me how they're going to regulate this, then I'll be certainly at the first of the table to consider changing it back. So I will be voting to enact this law.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the 4 board members that have spoken. They've researched the stuff, they've voted their conscience, and I appreciate that, and appreciate Roger for your last 4 years, and TJ your last 4 years, and your dedication to government and serving as now a village trustee. As I said in the beginning, the town board, there's about 10 things involved with the New York State cannabis law. 2 of them are why we're here today, the dispensaries and the consumption rooms. So we have the towns and cities and villages have the duty, the responsibility, and authority to act on whether cannabis dispensaries and consumption rooms are allowed in the town of Wawarsing outside the boundaries of the village of Ellenville. And I mention that because there is a village inside this town. And the village of Ellenville last week chose to take no action, as has been mentioned earlier in the meeting, therefore to opt in to both the dispensaries and the consumption rooms. They've emphasized the tax revenue will help to bring much needed revenue to their operation of their village government. The village is the population hub of the town of Wawarsing. If the town of Wawarsing opts out, the village will receive the tax revenue, which of course at this time is an unknown amount, but nevertheless it's a possible revenue stream that they so dearly and severely need in this village. So that's, from their angle, Paul talked about, we can't really base everything on revenue, but in this case, I think the village did quite clearly state, because I went to the village public hearing, they made strong comments about how much the revenue could be and has been in other communities. But you also have to measure these other communities with the village of Ellenville. I think one of the examples that was brought up of Lee, Massachusetts wasn't a good example. Lee, Massachusetts has the Tanglewood Arts and Music Center there. They have the outlets there. They're about 45 minutes from Albany, New York. And at the time, New York State wasn't illegal. It wasn't legal to possess or to all the different rules of the law. So therefore, I think that may have helped some of the revenue stream that they got. Again, I mentioned just earlier that you really can't measure the revenue that they're going to get in the village of Ellenville because obviously they're they opted in, and good luck with. I hope it works out for them in a financial revenue stream. I'm concerned about how it's going to affect the overall community. If the town of Wawarsing opts out, I had mentioned the village will receive the revenue, which of course is an unknown amount. The New York Cannabis Board was implemented. One of the downsides of speaking last in this format is I've heard a lot of people in the audience, and I've heard from the town board members. The very valid point that I believe the Cannabis Board was selected in late October. One of our previous senators, Senator Metzger, is one of the people on that board, and she's charged to be part of this decision making of devising the regulations for the state of New York. Again, I've spent a lot of time talking to people. People have walked up to me, talked to me. They came to my office downstairs. They've seen me at Walmart. They've seen me, all over town. And they've mentioned the pros and cons, or they gave you their specific feelings. And it has, like Paul said, it's a hard decision in some ways, but in other ways, for me, it's pretty easy. But this pandemic is moving people here. So in one way, it's a terrible thing what's going on with the pandemic, but it's bringing people either from the city or the tri-state area or whatever, and they're moving up here. It's going to increase it's helping real estate, it's helping businesses, it's helping opportunities to people that live here to get jobs, because people that are coming from other parts of the country or state or region to start businesses here. And I just feel that the particular law that we're talking about tonight isn't the only way to make our town a desirable, safe, beautiful outdoor mecca to visit and to call home. Again, Paul said there was other options, and by opting out, again, the town can opt back in and make a decision to reverse that decision. But if you do it the opposite way, you can't. So my vote at this point is voting yes to the opting out. That at this point the vote is 3-2 to opt in.
Opt out.
Did I just say opt in?
To activate the.
To activate the law.
Move to adjourn.
Second. So just to repeat it again, the board approved the law 3-2. And the other law.
Yeah.
Both laws.
Both laws.
So, at this time, does anybody else have any comments about anything regarding this?
No.
No?
Change your vote.
Motion to adjourn?
I make it.
Paul makes the motion.
Second.
TJ seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion